Yes, my friends, oh, my friends, you are my friends. If you don't think you my friend, because I said you my friend, and nothing you can do about it because you own Strong Inspirations. This is my channel. And if you on here to watch my channel, I'm going to call you a friend because you here to learn and uplift and get and enlighten your consciousness. That's what I'm doing. Let me direct this so you can see me a little bit better, everybody. I guess that's good. You're enlightening your consciousness. I'm Anthony Brogdon, and I'm not the unconsciousness lighter. I'm the guy who asks the questions, and my guests are the enlighteners. Because they tell me stuff I don't know, I never heard of. That's what they doing. That's what the lady on the channel gonna do. Watch it. She gonna share some things I never heard of. And I'm not gonna give you a tip, but all I'm gonna do right now is say, hey, my friends, you see how this thing is blowing up? And it's blowing up so much that May, Memorial Day weekend, 2022, I'm having my own festival in a town in Kansas. The city is called Quindaro. The slaves walked across the water from Missouri when it froze and ended up in Quindaro. And I guess them slave catchers were saying, hey, we ain't going over there. You get over there. We ain't coming over there looking for you. No, man, we ain't coming over there. Look, so when you got there, all is well. I'm sure some of them were daring enough to come over there. They had the government on their side, had the rifles and all that. But nonetheless, I got a guy who I interviewed, his great-great-grandfather, I don't know how many greats it was one of them, who walked across that river in the middle of the night to end up in Quindaro, end up raising his family, and he started a business. Let me tell you what this means. You can't keep us down, no matter what you do. And how about this? This is some of what the sister on the channel gonna talk about. And how about this? I had enough of you. I'm out of here. I'm gonna walk, crawl, something to get away from you, Mr. Charlie. Because you mistreating me. I've had enough of this. And I'm going 1,000 miles away from you. I hate you that much, and I know you want me that bad. I'm going 1,000 miles away from you to get away from you, because you ain't right, man. This ain't good. You know, how about this? I don't know if I said it. Maybe I said it already. I'm Anthony Brogdon. That's my take on this story. I had enough of you. Everybody on Strong Inspirations, I try to find people that got these Black history stories, and I let them tell it. That's what the sister about to do. She's gonna tell the story in her family. So do me a couple things, 3 things, 4 things, 5 things. Hit the subscribe button. It's free. I don't ask no information. It's just subscribe. And I think I'm close to 500 subscribers, which ain't bad. I want 5,000 by the end of the year, which if you don't know when this projects, when this airs and into the future, I got 4 months. So y'all need to hit that button. Y'all need to share this information. Like this video, because I'm telling you, it's gonna be something she gonna tell you don't know. Watch. She look like she got something that you don't know. Strong sister. Hit the notifications bell when I put them up. I'm rolling so much, I do 4 or 5 videos a week. This thing is going. This train has left the station. I'm putting together a festival. Man, it came to me in the middle of the night, man. Come on, let's share this knowledge and have these people out there who watching me. I want to meet some of y'all. We're going to wear our masks, but still, I'm going to meet some of you all. We're going to do some talking, and I'm going to have some of the people on the show be there too. How about that? And tell somebody about Strong Inspirations. Don't keep it to yourself. Don't do that. I told this in another video. I had a lady hit me up. She said, you know, I don't know what town she was. She said, to tell you the truth, sir, if you know a nice young man who knows Strong Inspirations, I'd be interested in meeting him. Come on, brothers. I couldn't do nothing for her. You know, I didn't know where she was at. Good looking lady though, nice strong sister. But you know, I mean, that's another story. I couldn't help her. I ain't in no matchmaking. But come on, brothers, you learn this. You share this with them kids. Take it to the classroom. Y'all can stop and start it. Get to the point that you want to show it, but show it. Get them people to know this information. Because I give it to you straight, no chaser. And then, you know, the other thing I want you to do is, because I'm so serious about my game, I'm a filmmaker. I did a documentary. It took me 2 years to do this movie, and I put it out in 2017. And then I had a little money at the time. I took it on my own dime to 40 cities. It was amazing when I got a hookup to go to Tulsa, Oklahoma. So what happened was I flew to Dallas because I was last minute getting my airlines tickets and I'm paying for it. So I flew to Dallas. So it was cheaper to get to Tulsa to get to Dallas from Detroit than go straight to Tulsa, as you can imagine. So I flew to Dallas and I had about 3 weeks notice. I found a bookstore in Dallas. I said, hey, can we have a showing of my movie? The sister said, yeah, let's do it. In 2 weeks showing, 2 weeks notice, we had 60 people show up at her bookstore. And then I took the mega bus or the Greyhound bus from Dallas to Oklahoma City. The people in Oklahoma City welcomed me. They gave me a nice plaque. We had a big crowd in used to be the Black High School. Now it's a apartment complex in Oklahoma City. And they took me to the restaurant because when I go out of town, I got to eat at a Black establishment. I can't talk Black history, then go eat at one of them, you know, other people's stuff. So they took me to the Black restaurant. The sister that started it, she was like 85. Beautiful lady. And her daughter was really beautiful. Both of them gorgeous. I ate at the spot. They had about another 30 people meet me there. I'm sitting there, I'm saying, dang, I ain't but an ordinary guy. And then the people from Tulsa picked me up, because I guess it's about a 2-hour drive between the two, Oklahoma City and took me to Tulsa. Check it out. They gave me a proclamation from the state of Oklahoma and a proclamation for the city of Tulsa. Had receptions in my honor. I'm an ordinary guy doing extraordinary thing. That was because of this movie. You need to watch this. Slaves went to college and Black millionaires in the 1800s. And then somebody said to me, hey man, why don't you put it in a book form? Boom, there it is. I wrote a book on it. This book going down in history because somebody told me it's the most comprehensive, easy to read Black history book ever. Because I'm not no big reader. It's only 134 pages, but it's over 200 facts. I don't add no commentary. I just give you the fact and I number the fact. And because you want to learn more of the facts I give you the reference section where I found it, the link. Just hit the link. That's my book, Black Business Book. The sister sitting there, she said, I got something to tell you. Come on, let me get it on. I said, she got one more second. Hold on, one more second. I don't mean no harm. Order my book, watch my movie. The movie's on Amazon. The book, go to my website, businessintheblack.net. Just go ahead and get you a copy. I'll autograph it. You need to get this one. I really appreciate it. Y'all hear me say the word strong a lot, right? Strong stands for strength, tenacity, resilience, and a sense of oneness, nobility, and grace. That's my introduction to the sister. She's strong. She's coming at you. Come on, sister, introduce yourself. Let's get it on. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Vanessa Fells. I am what we call an African Nova Scotian. My family has been here in the province of Nova Scotia for hundreds of years, really? Back into the 1700s. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so let me ask you a couple questions, like, you know, before we get to the story and go up on you. How you like living in Canada?
I guess the first and funniest answer that people always give is it's cold.
Okay.
It reminds me all the time that Black people were not made for Canadian weather. But for the most part, you know, it's nice. We live in a small province. It's not without its issues like anywhere else on earth. It's not without its racism and trying to address those issues. But, you know, there is a strong Black community here in the province that has been here dating back 400 years.
Really?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And so when you say strong, what's the population total of Nova Scotia, and what might be the Black percentage?
Very small now. There are approximately about 1 million people here in the province, and we only make up about 2.5% of that. So it's about 25 to 30,000 people are Black Nova Scotian, or yeah, Black Nova Scotian as we call them.
You know everybody?
No, I don't know everybody, but it definitely is a small community that if you don't know them, you know somebody who knows them.
I got
And
you.
when we always say, you know, a guy who knows a guy, yeah, it definitely goes that way.
How about this? Do you all live in the same side of town for the most part?
No, not at all. So Nova Scotia has what we call historical Black communities that were made up over the last 400 years. And there are 52 historic Black communities throughout the province. I'm originally from one in the South Shore that we call Yarmouth, but we're spread out throughout the entire province, which of course the largest population being in the capital city of Halifax.
Now, when you say a community, you might be talking about, with them few numbers, it might be, 100 families that live in the same 6, 7 blocks, that type thing?
Absolutely. That is absolutely what could possibly happen. The majority of them would all be family. I know within my Black community, which is much more spread out now, as time goes, people move on. The majority of people they're still my family, they're still my relatives in some way. It's funny because even now, I may not even know all of my family, but I may see somebody who, as soon as they hear my last name Fells, will say, "Oh, well, I know. Not only do I know that Fells tells me, because here in the province, which is so small in our historical communities, your last name will actually tell people what Black community you're from."
Oh, is
And
that
so
right?
so my last name is Fells. That tells people that my Black community is what we call the southern shore of the province, Yarmouth, the Greenville, Digby, Shelburne. That's where those families are from. Whereas a Black family with the last name of Reddick would be from the northern part of the province of Nova Scotia.
Okay.
And that has been happening for hundreds of years, since the 1700s, when the Black Loyalists first landed here.
Okay, we're gonna get into
we
them
still
stories.
have that
Don't let
today.
me forget that.
Yeah.
But what about, so how close is the next Black community to where you are?
Well, I currently live in Dartmouth, which is the city of Halifax. It's a super city now. It's 3 cities put together. So the next Black community to me is not very far. It may be a five-minute drive from here, which would just be across the bridge in Halifax.
Okay.
Yeah.
But the other community that you talked about where you grew up previously,
that would be like a 3.5-hour drive from here. It's at the very end of the southern part of the province in a small place called Yarmouth.
Okay. What was there something to the segregation? Did the Canadians put in some rules that, okay, we're gonna give you all that area over there, we're gonna give you that area over there, or was it just arbitrary that somebody moved there and the rest of them just came along?
No, when most people think that Black Canadians, when they arrived here in Nova Scotia, came by choice, and they chose to come to Nova Scotia, which isn't true. They came because they had no other choice. They were almost like refugees. After like the American Revolutionary War and the War of 1812, you had all of these escaped slaves, escaped Black people who had fought for the British. And the British didn't know what to do with them, but leaving them in the United States meant that they would possibly be re-enslaved. So the British brought them to a new colony that they had established in the province of Nova Scotia. So that's how we got here.
Really? That's the story.
Yes. Yep. And so it happened in about 4 what we call waves of people who arrived, with the Black Loyalists, the Black planters being the first, and then the Black Loyalists. But that's how we arrived here in the province of Nova Scotia, which is much different than when people think of the Underground Railway, which also happened, but it didn't happen here in Nova Scotia. That happened more in Ontario, in the middle of Canada.
Right. Okay, let's go back to this. Okay, the first word you used before loyalist was what?
Black planters.
Planters,
So,
and they got
yes.
there how?
So they arrived with what was called the New England planters, which would have been Americans who came here in the middle of the 1750s. And they came to the Valley region, what we call the Annapolis Valley region here in Nova Scotia. And they planted, they used land. It's excellent farming land. And so with them also arrived 3 Black people, who we call the Black planters.
Okay, hold on. You got me. I like what you're saying. The Black people came with the white people.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Okay, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. And so
and these white people were from New England area, Boston, that kind of area.
Yeah.
And were they Quakers?
I do not know if they were Quakers. We just called them the New England planters, and with them were 3 Blacks who came as well, and they were planters as well. So they established communities. However, when they established communities, they were outside of what we call white townships. So because of racism, they weren't permitted to establish their homes in white cities or white towns. So if you look in Nova Scotia, how he said there were 52 what we call historic Black communities. All of those Black communities are on the outskirts of white towns, every single one of them.
All right, how about this? So the white people, were they their slaves?
No, most of them were either the English, the British, or the French from France. And so they came and colonized the province and the area before it was known as Nova Scotia.
No, but what my question is, when you say these planters came and they brought the Black people, were the Black people they brought their slaves?
No.
They were just their friends?
I don't know, there's not a lot of history on the Black planters, but we know that they were free people. That does not mean that there were not slaves here in the province. There were slaves here in the province of Nova Scotia way back as far as the 1600s.
Oh man, I'm still trying to get my mind around this. Okay, I'm from New England. These white people are from New England. They go to Nova Scotia, and I decide to go with them.
Yeah.
That's the story.
Yes. Yeah.
But I'm not their slave.
No. But that does not mean that there were not slaves. But the majority of the Black planters were not slaves. They were
okay.
Black
How about
people.
this one? How do they got an estimate of how many Blacks came in that wave?
They do not have an estimate at all of how many there were that came in that wave. No.
But you gotta imagine it might have been just a couple hundred.
It may have been a very small amount.
Yeah, a very small amount. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then how did they get there?
It would have been through ships. So they would have sailed. They would have sailed up the Bay of Fundy, as we call it, and they would have landed in the Annapolis Valley region. We have Fort Anne, which was a strong military holding at that time, and they would have landed there and horse buggy until they got to the farmland and established their communities.
Okay. Now, let me do my geography right here. Okay, I'm in New England. I'm on the Atlantic Ocean.
Yep.
How does a ship get from New England Atlantic Ocean to Nova Scotia? Okay, before I ask that, Nova Scotia is located above what part of America?
It would be located above Maine and then
I see.
Yeah. So we're a little bit farther if you're looking at the map, we would be a little bit farther to the right, and you would see Nova Scotia. It kind of hangs out by itself in
above Maine.
Above
so it's
Maine.
Still on the eastern side of America or what have you.
Yes. Yeah.
I got so Nova Scotia is on the Atlantic Ocean.
Yes, it is on the Atlantic Ocean.
I got you. Now I got it.
We're a peninsula, what they call a peninsula. So we are surrounded by water on all sides except for one.
I got you. And then you said after them were the Loyalists.
Yes. Yep. So after the American Revolutionary War,
which is 18 what?
Which was 18. When did it start?
Something like that.
1875 was the American Revolutionary War.
But that's after slavery ended.
No. Slavery did not end in America or
In America.
or Canada. No, slavery didn't end until the 1800s in the United States.
But you said
Same as in
1875.
Oh, sorry, 17.
Oh,
Sorry,
okay. Now we
1775.
good. Now we good. Okay, come on, we got it.
Mixing my dates up here.
It.
1775.
I got
So
you.
the American Revolution happens, in which the United States win that war and separate themselves from British rule.
Right.
And out of that, what happened was the British had called upon enslaved Black people in the United States to run away from their slave masters and take up arms against the American colonies, which thousands of them did. And they ran and fought for the British, but the British lost the war. So in the end, what the British had promised all of these escaped slaves is to give them their freedom, give them protection under British law, and give them land in which to live. So once the war was ended in 1783,
right,
well over 3,000 escaped African or Black people from the United States boarded ships with the British in New York and sailed to the new British colony of Nova Scotia.
I got you. Now we got the right numbers. They got the numbers. I got you.
Yeah, and they were called the Black Loyalists because they were loyal to the British Crown.
Do you imagine that? Okay, so this escape from America to get to Nova Scotia via the help of the British, was that like a 1 day, a 2 day, a 6 month type ordeal? Do they know?
I mean, I think even reading slave narratives from those who escaped through the Underground Railway, it would take weeks, depending on what part of the country you were in. What the British did is they put out proclamations for enslaved Black people to hear about, to say, if you fight for us during the American Revolution, we will give you your freedom, and we will give you land, and we will give you our protection. And so many of them would risk their lives, just as they did for the Underground Railway for that freedom. And you had thousands of Black people who had done this, men, women, and children. It wasn't just men.
Okay, how about this one? Where did those ships leave from to go for those loyalists? Do they know?
So they would have left from New York City.
Oh, I see.
And they would have sailed from New York and landed here in Nova Scotia.
Which is probably maybe a 2 day sail or something like that.
At that point, I think it was. We have ferries now that sail from Nova Scotia here, and that go down to the States, and they take a few hours.
I got you.
They take 5 or 6 hours to.
I got you.
Sail.
How about this? This might be funny. You got to tell me, hey man, I got to get on another ship. I don't know if I can do that.
Well, you know what, and that's one of the things that we wonder about, and we say, we're people. Is this what they really wanted to do? I mean, after everything that they had been from, and then you have to trust in these British, but you really didn't have a choice, because in New York at that time, your choice was you could stay in that now British territory, but remember, Americans were moving in with their slave catchers. So your choice is you can stay there and possibly be captured and be re-enslaved, or you can get on this boat to a new land that you know nothing about and have your freedom.
Okay, how about this one? Was there, how did they know who fought for them and who didn't? I mean, because if I'm one of them guys and say, hey man, this is my way, even though I didn't fight for you, you can't tell I did or didn't. Do you think there was something to that?
So I don't know exactly who they knew fought for them, but what I can say is that when the Blacks who were the Black Loyalists in New York left for Nova Scotia, all of their names were recorded in a book called the Book of Negroes.
Oh, really?
And it gave a description, which, if you can still see a digital copy of it today, but really? It gave a description of all of the Black people that were leaving New York and sailing for Nova Scotia. And there are still currently 2 copies that exist in the world. There were 2 copies of the book, and one of them went to England because England was owned by, or Nova Scotia was owned by the British and under British rule, and it's in their archives. And the other one is still in the United States in their national archives that have the list of all of those individuals, and well over 3,000 people were recorded in this Book of Negroes.
That's got to be, we can maybe estimate 10 ships or something like that, maybe?
Well, they would have also come with the white loyalists and the British that were leaving New York at the same time. So we're not sure exactly how many ships it were that would have landed, but there were quite a few, and they landed all up and down Nova Scotia, and a few ships actually landed in New Brunswick as well.
Do you know which one of your family might have been? Were they the planters, they the loyalists, or who's next?
So I know that my family would have been partly the planters as well as the loyalists. So I've done my research. There's actually a museum now that is dedicated to the Black Loyalists here in Nova Scotia. And it sits on the site of what the largest Black community of loyalists were in a place called Birchtown, Nova Scotia, where over 1,200 of the 3,000 loyalists here in the province lived. I know that I can trace my roots back to the Book of Negroes to a Black man named Argyle Keeling.
Really?
Yes. Yeah. And their genealogy section, you could go in the museum and look, and it will give you all of that information and tell you that history. You have to look for it, but you can find out about your family tree. Remember how I was talking about last names, and we can tell those last names. To this day, there are people in this province that still have the exact same last names that are recorded in the Book of Negroes. That's their family.
You got me going. I love it. Okay, you said there was somebody in your family was a planter.
Yes. Yeah.
But there's no record of a book of the planters.
There's not much of a record. This was just research. My uncle is a family historian and and an educator. So he's done a lot of history on the family and looking up, and found out about the Black planter side of the family. And then I actually worked at the Black Loyalist Museum for several years. So I did the Black Loyalist side of the family and pieced all that together as well.
Okay, how about this? Do you know the connection between the people that were the planters in your family and the loyalists?
Well, one side would be my, on my father's side, one side would be my grandmother's side of the family. That would be the Black planters. They come from very close to the valley region of the province. And then the other side would be my grandfather's side, and they would have been Black Loyalists.
After the Black Loyalists, was there another migration movement?
There was. So the Black Loyalists, a lot of them left Nova Scotia in 1792 because the conditions were very harsh here. They were not used to winter at all. They really didn't know how to survive on the land. The land that they were given was extremely rocky, and they could not farm on it. If they got any land at all, there were a lot of broken promises from the British.
Oh, really?
Many of them would sell themselves back into slavery just to be able to
hold on. Don't
survive.
Say that.
Oh, yes, it happened. Absolutely. They would write contracts of indentured servitude. Sadly, many of them could not read and write, and so they were just signing contracts without the ability to read them. So they were putting themselves into indentured servitude for generations without knowing. And
where?
Even
in Canada or back in America?
No, in Canada. Here in Canada, absolutely. Yeah. The people are under the misconception that there was no slavery here in Canada, which is absolutely false. There was slavery here in Canada. People were bought and sold here in this province. Actually, less than a 10-minute drive from where I'm sitting now is where the auction block was, here in the city of Halifax. Yeah.
But then Canada ended slavery years before America did.
Yes, they did. Canada ended slavery in 1834, even before Canada became its own country. So Canada was owned and under British rule, and they put in the Anti-Slavery Abolition Act, which ended slavery within all British colonies throughout the world, including Canada. And that came into effect on August 1st of 1834, which now this year actually was the first year ever that Canada, as well as my home province of Nova Scotia, recognized what we now call Emancipation Day, which is when all the slaves were emancipated or set free. Very much like Juneteenth.
Yes.
In the United States, yes.
And now there's becoming some celebrations around that?
Absolutely. We had the very first one. Our federal government and our prime minister, as well as our provincial and state government, have recognized Emancipation Day. So now we recognize the day and what it means for people of African ancestry all throughout the country.
When they got to this land and it wasn't inhabitable, couldn't farm on it, they decided, hey, this is not good. There were other promises that were broken, such as?
Again, they couldn't farm the land. Many of them did not get the land that they were promised. Many starved to death and froze to death because these were the Black Loyalists. They didn't know what they were doing. They were lucky to have our First Nations or Indigenous people who lived here at the same time. We call them the Mi'kmaq people, who taught them how to survive off this land. If not for them, many more would have died and would have starved and frozen to death. So after about 10 years of living here, including North America's first race riot that happened to the Black Loyalists, just outside of Birchtown, where the largest community lived, with the British. They started a race riot because the white British were very upset that the Black Loyalists were coming into town and getting jobs. And that started the first known race riot ever recorded in history.
Wow.
Yeah. So what ended up happening is that the Black Loyalists petitioned through an educated Black Loyalist. His name was Thomas Peters. He went to England and petitioned the government to let the Black Loyalists leave. And about 1,200 of the 3,000 that came, so almost everybody that would have lived in Birchtown at the time, just to give a perspective, left Nova Scotia, and they sailed across the Atlantic and landed and established the now capital city called Freetown in Sierra Leone.
Really?
Yes.
That's Africa.
Yes, they sailed back to Africa.
They back on them ships again.
Yep. I know. I know. But yeah, a lot of them left, but some of them stayed here in Nova Scotia.
What did your family do? They stayed, evidently.
They stayed here, yeah.
So what did they do for a living if things were rough? Can you track what your great grandfather did to survive?
You can't really track it, but from records that we have, you look to see most of them became laborers, and they would walk because most of them didn't have enough money. They would walk into the white townships and do whatever work they could get that day. And the walk to white townships wasn't a short walk. We would call it in kilometers, but you would call it in miles. Sometimes it was 8 to 10 mile one way walk to get to the white townships to look for work that day. And that's how they survived for many years as they kept building their communities.
I want to go back to what was the wave after the Loyalists. You said something. I don't know if we got into that. So
after the Loyalists left, about 4 years later, the next arrival was what we call the Jamaican Maroons, and that was in 1796. So about 4 years after the Black Loyalists left. And the Jamaican Maroons were Black people who were enslaved in the country of Jamaica, who threw an uprising in the country and overthrew the British, because again, it was colonized by the British.
Okay.
And they freed themselves. And after so many attempts for the British to try and re-enslave these, strong Black men, women, and children, the British finally decided that they didn't want to deal with them anymore. And so they exiled them from the country and sent them here to the province of Nova Scotia.
Put them back on the ship.
Yep, get away. They didn't want to deal with them anymore in Jamaica, so they put them on ships and they sent them here to Nova Scotia.
Okay, well, oh, how about this? That's gotta be I don't know. I don't know, for the lack of a better word. The British did do the right thing, because they could have brought them to America and sold them.
They absolutely could, but nobody wanted them because they were fierce freedom fighters and they were willing to give their lives or anything they could for their freedom. And so you could try and sell them, but at the same time, you're going to say, I will sell you this person who will probably start an uprising with the enslaved Black people that you already have to gain their freedom as well. So people were afraid of the Jamaican Maroons. They were very, very strong and very strong-willed.
I love it. I love it. So now, as we move up the timeline, you say the people from Jamaica, was there another wave that came to Nova Scotia?
Absolutely. Yeah, there was another wave. So the Maroons were here. They were feared in the province of Nova Scotia. They were put to work to build some of the military strongholds here in the province, such as like Citadel Hill that we have, which is a military Navy stronghold that is still here. I can see it from my apartment building. And again, they were segregated. They built more Black communities, those original 52. They built some of those Black communities while they were here, segregated from white townships. They were unhappy being here in Nova Scotia, so a large number of them also got on ships and left and went to Sierra Leone, Freetown.
The Maroons, I've heard that name. Where did they come from?
The Maroons came from Jamaica.
Oh, so those are the Jamaicans.
Yeah, we call them the Jamaican Maroons. So some of them stayed and some of them left and went to Freetown and Sierra Leone. And then you have your next wave of Blacks who came here as well. Yeah. So the next wave is what we call the Black refugees. And their story is very similar to the Black Loyalists, but they came during the War of 1812, which was another war between the British and the United States, in which the United States won that war and exiled the British from the United States again. Happened more than once.
Okay.
But again, the British asked for enslaved Black people in the United States to run away from their slave masters and to take up arms against their slave masters. And again, thousands of them would do that. The British would lose the war and they would board ships and end up here in Nova Scotia and establish more Black communities.
As we move up the timeline from there, how was conditions for Blacks who stayed, who were able to make a way for themselves for education? I mean, did they go through a civil rights type stuff similar to America, or what's the take?
They absolutely did. It was very much more subtle. When people talk about racism in Canada, they talk about it being much more subtle. So while you had Jim Crow laws and legal segregation, we also had Jim Crow, but it wasn't legalized. But it was well known throughout the entire province and even in other parts of Canada that there were segregation laws. We had segregated schools, just like you did. Our last segregated school did not close until 1983.
Wow.
Yeah. We had segregated cemeteries. So you could not bury Black and white people in the same cemeteries up here. We had segregated movie theaters, where it's just where the big story of who we call Viola Desmond, and many people would call her Canada's Rosa Parks. She did much the same thing. What people don't know is that she did it 9 years before Rosa Parks did.
She did it on the bus system, or what was her?
She did it in a movie theater. So in 1946, she was an entrepreneur and a businesswoman. She owned a beauty school, and she also owned a hair care and beauty company. She went to a small community called New Glasgow, and her car broke down. So while her car was getting fixed, she went to a movie theater to watch a movie. And she asked for a seat on the bottom floor of the theater, and they told her that they wouldn't sell to her because the rule was Black people had to sit in the balcony. She absolutely defied them and went and sat in the bottom of the theater and was arrested They drug her off to jail. She lost her purse. She lost her shoe. She broke her wrist while she was being thrown in jail. The biggest thing about it, though, is that when she was charged, they didn't mention the fact that she was Black and that this was a racist policy that they were using.
Right.
What they said was that they charged her for evading the 1-cent tax of sitting on the bottom floor of the movie theater. She appealed it and lost, but she got so much support from the Black community here who wanted to overchange those racist laws.
Right.
But it didn't happen. But she also got so much racism and hate that she would leave Nova Scotia and she never came back.
Is there a Dr. Martin Luther King of Nova Scotia or something?
What do you mean?
That, you know, fought for like one person or a reverend or otherwise who was very much an activist against the injustices?
So I would call him, his name was Reverend Richard Preston. When I spoke about the last group of Black people who came in 1812, he actually came 4 years later. He was enslaved in the United States in Virginia. He bought his own freedom and then came here to Nova Scotia to look for his mother who had escaped during the War of 1812. He found her and he lived the rest of his life here in Nova Scotia and established the first Black churches here. He also helped to establish what was called the African United Baptist Association, which was all of those Black churches coming together to work to address those racist issues. And here we are in 2021, that organization still exists today. It is the oldest Black organization in Canada.
Would that be like our NAACP maybe?
It would kind of be like the NAACP, but Nova Scotia actually also used to have a Nova Scotia NAACP before I was born, but they used to have one to address issues of racism here in the province.
Is there a Black History Museum in Nova Scotia?
There is. There are several. The first one was opened in 1989. It is called the Black Cultural Center of Nova Scotia. And then there's the Black Loyalist Heritage Museum, which talks specifically about the Black Loyalists. And then there is also what's called the Africville Museum. And the Africville was a Black community here in the province, just outside of Halifax, 10 minutes from where I currently live. And that Black community was actually demolished by the city of Halifax so that they could develop the waterfront property. And they stole the land from the Black community that lived there to the point where they even bulldozed the church into the harbor in the middle of the night. They've since apologized for that, but there are very sad stories with Black history, of course, here in the province.
You all have, and I think I know what it is, but when is, you all celebrate Black History Month too?
Absolutely, yes. Black History Month in February, same as in the United States. It's very important to us. We actually started officially recognizing Black History Month in the 1990s.
And as we kind of come to a close, the big celebration of slavery in Nova Scotia would be the Juneteenth celebration or something else?
Well, that would be the first one that we had, which was Emancipation Day. Just had it this past August 1st.
So August 1st is Emancipation Day.
August 1st is Emancipation Day here, yes. Yeah.
Is there a Black festival other than that where, you know, the Jamaicans, you know how they have in Toronto, the Jamaicans or something like that, that people can come out and catch the good flavor of Nova Scotia?
There are many different, because what has happened over the years is that you have those traditional, what we call African Nova Scotians who have had, you know, links and family that go back hundreds of years, but then you have new arrivals who have come, you know, since the 1900s, and, you know, people who arrive from the motherland and the continent. So there are many different celebrations that go on there. You know, we have Jamaican days, and then there are African countries that have those have celebrations as well. So there's a lot.
I guess one of the a couple more questions. Here in America, a Black person can rise to extreme heights.
Mhm.
We can run Fortune 500 companies. We even had a Black president. Could something like that happen in Canada, or what's the highest height so far that a Black person has attained in that kind of way in Nova Scotia?
I think the highest that we have obtained would be not only Black senators, so we have senators here as well. Here in Nova Scotia, we would call them the lieutenant governor, and what they are is they are a representative of the Queen. That represents still part of British rule, kind of. And so they would be a representative of the Queen here in the province of Nova Scotia. And our first Black, she was named in 2000, and I want to say it was around 2006. Her name was Mayanne Francis. So she would have been probably the highest. It was her actually who gave Viola Desmond a full pardon for her arrest.
Okay. Is there a question that I have not asked you? Tell us about your Facebook group, which is how I found you, so on and so forth.
So I currently work for an organization known as the African Nova Scotian Decade for People of African Descent Coalition, which is a long name, but we are currently in year 6 of the United Nations International Decade for People of African Descent. Here in Nova Scotia, we have many Black organizations that do work, some in justice, some in health, some in housing, you name it. So what we decided to do is instead of working separately, we are now working as a collective to address those issues, because the African proverb says, "Sticks in a bundle don't break." So we have a much louder voice when we work collectively and together. So I'm the director of this organization and this collaboration coalition, and we work together to address issues of racism. One of the biggest things that has just happened for us is that the government has acknowledged that there are a lot of issues in the justice system in terms of racism. As you know, same as in the United States, racial profiling, over policing, police brutality, longer prison sentencing, all of those. Same as they had stop and search in the United States, we had the exact same thing here in Nova Scotia, but we called it street checks. And so our government here has acknowledged that there are those issues and has just given us funding to create an African Nova Scotian Justice Institute that will work with the Department of Justice to address racism within the justice system.
Okay, I love it. And then your Facebook group is called what?
We are called the African Nova Scotian Decade for People of African Descent.
Yep,
but we call it DPAD for short, DPAD
right.
For short. Yeah.
Do you have a website?
Yes. Yeah. So our website is ansdpad.ca.
I love it. Are you an activist?
Absolutely, 100% an activist for all people of African ancestry that live here in the province of Nova Scotia, Canada, and the world. Yes.
Man, I got one more question. I hope you don't mind that. Have you received death threats or something like that? Because you all are such a minority that, you know, the population would be like, hey, man, ain't but about 300 of y'all or whatever, you know what I mean? And you up here trying to cause a stir. Is that something?
I personally have not received death threats, but that does not mean that we don't receive hate mail. We absolutely receive hate mail. You know, just like anywhere in the world, people don't like to talk about racism. It makes them uncomfortable. So one of the things that we encourage is for people to put themselves in that uncomfortable situation and hold what we call courageous conversations about race. The only way that we can address it is if we talk about it and we work together to find solutions, change policy, change laws, so that we can all live in an equitable society.
I love it. Well, to you, I say thank you so very much for coming on the channel. Everybody, this is what I do here at Strong Inspiration, man. I find the head person. I find the big kahuna person that can do it and tell us the story. And she knows it very well. This has been her life. This your calling.
Thank you.
This is your calling.
Believe it or not, none of this information is taught in schools. They don't teach a lot of Black history. They're a little bit better than they used to be, but they don't teach most of this history in our school system still. Issues, right? Issues of systemic racism. Man. So we learn it from our museums, we learn it from our elders, pick up books, we do what we can to make sure that we know our history and we can pass it on. Yes.
Oh my God. Everybody, she blew me away. I was popping them questions out of too. What did you see me hitting them out of? And she was like, hold on, I got all them answers. Ooh, she's good. Thank you so very much for coming on the channel. Everybody hit the subscribe button to Strong Inspirations, because we global. It's not just America, we global. I got a lady coming on that I'm interviewing very soon, and it'll be up by time, all this other, it'll be up. It's coming on the channel. She's from Australia. She's gonna share some of this history, Black history in Australia. I'm coming around the globe, telling everybody so we can all come together via Strong Inspirations. I thank you so very much for coming on the channel. Again, everybody hit the subscribe button. You need to like this video if you don't like no other. You need to like this video. You hit the notifications bell for when the videos come up. I'm doing 4 or 5 of them a week. You get notified, hey, there's a video. Tell somebody about Strong Inspirations. Please tell them. Not just Black people, white people, all kind of folk. Let them know so we can come together. And what she said, let's bring all this conversation and maybe bring it to light, and we can end some of this injustices and racisms and things like that. And then to you, my sister, I say with all sincerity, I want you to stay strong, stay safe, stay on your grind. I love what you're doing up there in Nova Scotia. I got to come up there in the warmer weather period and then visit for one of the holidays. I've been to Canada, because in Detroit, I can not walk, but go right over to Windsor. But I like to come see it. I hear it's got to be a beautiful city right on the water with the beaches and that kind of thing, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, come, let me know. I'll make sure to introduce you around and take you to our cultural places as well as our museums. Come on up. Come on up,
everybody. Let's do it. Yes. Hey, how about this one last thing before I say goodbye? Everybody, go to her website. Send some money. How about that, everybody? And they can transfer it to Canadian dollars. Everybody, send some money. So to you, I say thank you again so much. Everybody, we out. Bye-bye. Have a beautiful day.
Bye.